Bo Derek is an icon of the film and modeling world and has had a career spanning more than half a century. But perhaps she's best known for her early work in movies like 10 and has been a famous pinup model. Derek is currently married to actor John Corbett, with whom she's been together for 18 years. But long before she and Corbett met, Bo was married to longtime husband actor John Derek. And despite staying together with him for a large chunk of her life, the beginning of their relationship was a huge scandal. Join Facts First as we present Bo Derek still regrets her affair started at 17 years old. Bo Derek was born Mary Kathleen Collins, and in 1973 she was a high school student hoping to one day make it in the world of modeling and acting. Yet unlike most high schoolers, Bo's dream was about to become true. She was given an offer to star in a film called Fantasies, filming that year in Greece. But agreeing to the part meant she wouldn't be able to continue her studies, at least not that year. Bo felt like it was an obvious choice. She would drop out of high school to chase after her dreams of becoming a star. But the trip to Greece became an extended stay for decidedly non-acting reasons. Bo, who was 16 when she agreed to do the film and 17 when production started, fell in love with the director, John Derek. And while falling in love on a movie set is a fairly common occurrence, their relationship was troublesome, for starters, because she was under 18 and he was 46, not to mention the fact he was married at the time. The scandalous affair rocked the tabloids, and it became clear that not only was it an ethical quandary, but also a legal issue as well. Trouble on set. The shady behavior began when John Derek came up with several sexually charged and risque shots that would feature Bo in the movie, which amped up the sexual tension on set as well as between them. He even featured brief nude shots of the 16-year-old, something that would never be allowed today. But as Bo became smitten with her director, she minded this overt sexualization less. To her, it was part of his courtship, and she fell in love with him as they filmed. By the middle of production, when Bo was 17, though still underage, the two began a full-fledged affair. The wild thing is not only was John already married to actress Linda Evans, but Linda was actually on set with the two, working on the film. Once word reached Linda that the illicit affair was happening, she immediately flew back to the U.S. to file for divorce from John. This, of course, left him to openly pursue his new relationship with Bo. However, once filming finished, the two moved to Germany, but not because they wanted a new and romantic vacation to start things off. The legal issue. The pair had to go to Germany because they literally couldn't go back to California. Or rather, they could, but John would be arrested for statutory rape. Since Bo was under the state age of consent, John could have been charged for dating her, and reportedly, one of her agents in California had declared he was ready to press charges on his client's behalf. So John and Bo decided to flee to Germany and live there until Bo turned 18. Then they'd make the move back to the U.S. where they could enjoy their relationship and not be breaking the law. Bo's parents. The legal system and general public weren't the only entities who didn't approve of Bo's relationship with John, who was decades older. Bo's parents were exceedingly disapproving and suspicious of the affair, at least at first. In an interview with Interview magazine in 2016, Bo talked about the affair and how her parents felt at the time. She said they were very upset. She admitted feeling like at age 17, she knew what she was doing and, quote, had it all together. But decades later, when she looks back at the situation, even when she looks at pictures of herself from that era, she realizes why people were so angry about the relationship. Still, claims Derek, she always checked in with her parents and flew home by herself several times to make sure they could see that not only was she okay, but was also of sound mind and not being coerced into the relationship. She said that after a while, they realized she was genuinely in love and seemed to warm to the idea. Back in the States. Eventually, Bo turned 18 and the two were legally allowed to date in the U.S., so they moved back from Germany to California. Many people suspected that Bo would, at that point, have fallen out of love with the much older man. They assumed it was a fling, triggered by the intimacy of a director and actor relationship on a film that was sexually charged, but that wasn't the case. The two were as in love as ever, and shortly after got married in 1976. And with every passing year, over the next couple of decades, they proved the naysayers wrong by staying together. In fact, it was only John's 1998 death that ended the marriage. The two stayed married and in love for more than 2 decades, which was surely a sign their relationship, despite how it started, was eventually a legit one. John was Bo's protector. In the early days of Bo Derek's career, when she was a young, up-and-coming model and actress, she understandably was receiving a lot of attention, and much of that was unwanted attention from men with less than admirable goals. Bo understood this was all part of being a famous person with a gorgeous face and body, but still, she felt uncomfortable with a lot of the attention. As such, she found herself relieved to have John in her life. She said there were a lot of men who found John intimidating and thus learned to leave her alone because they feared his wrath. So John acted as a protector of sorts in the early days of their relationship. She's even mentioned going on auditions and having producers blatantly try to make out with her. But she said that even her mom had taught her early on that wasn't acceptable, saying, quote, "My mother taught me at a young age to kick them in the nuts." So clearly, Derek was also able to fend for herself in many ways. Bo's regrets. At the time, Bo was a young starlet who fell in love with a director. And while she certainly knew he was married, her concern wasn't for Linda Evans, his soon-to-be ex-wife. But now that Derek is a lot older and wiser, she looks back on the affair with some regret. She said in interviews that she regrets being a reason for the breakup of a marriage. She's referred to said breakup as a horrible thing and claims that even today the thought of it still breaks her heart. This is despite the fact that she remained with John for the rest of his life and the two made decades worth of happy memories together. And while she's certainly not regretful of those aspects, she hates the fact that they had to come at the expense of someone else's heartbreak. She's also spoken about Linda Evans and what she went through. She referred to Evans as a beautiful human, saying Evans didn't deserve that kind of treatment. Bo says that not only is she forever sorry to Linda, but that she refuses to forgive herself for the affair. She says she's learned her lesson and would never make the same mistake again. Of course, now that she's in her 60s and happily married, it doesn't seem like that similar of a circumstance would come up. But it's nice to see she has perspective on the situation and feels remorse for being a homewrecker when she was 17. One surprising aspect of the story is that when Bo was shooting footage for her documentary called Bo Derek in My Own Words, she asked Evans to be interviewed, and perhaps even more surprising, Evans accepted the invitation. In response, Bo said she never expected Linda would actually say yes. Derek admitted to being blown away by the gesture. She said the interview made her rehash all the painful moments that involved hurting Linda, but that she had always been incredibly kind to Bo. She guessed that perhaps Linda still had things she needed to get off her chest, and talking about them in the documentary helped the healing process more than simply time elapsing. Bo Derek has also been able to look back at the affair and subsequent relationship through the lens of the Me Too era. She says she's grateful John wasn't the type of perverted man who was simply taking advantage of a young girl because of his power over her. Though it should be noted that adding nude scenes for a 16-year-old actress as you direct her in a movie and then starting a relationship is a pretty clear-cut example of grooming and wouldn't be tolerated today. But Derek has always considered him a good man and says he's unlike the Me Too abusers who have been brought to light in recent years. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think it was wrong for director John Derek to start dating his 17-year-old actress? Let us know in the comments section below.